All right, folks, good morning and welcome to part two of our Creating Passionate Readers series. Hopefully, this is a great extension for those who joined us our first session, but for those who are joining us for the first time, I think there's a lot that you're going to get out of this. We'll go ahead and get started, but our goal today is to uncover how we can help students find books they love. Let's do a little bit of review of where we left off from our last session. We learned that students in Blue Valley have some particular opinions about reading. After surveying over 300 middle and high school students across the district, they told us that reading is boring, that reading is scary and difficult, hard or slow, just not for me. When we asked them, are you actually, even though you hate it, do you read outside of school? And the answer was no, it's boring. We have other things to do. I don't find it interesting. I'd rather be with my friends. I usually get bored. So we know the kids are not reading at home. And so the problem we uncovered is that students are not reading, and students who don't read become illiterate adults. Illiterates are people who have the ability to read but choose not to, and these people miss out on just as much as those people who cannot read at all. So we asked them, how can reading be better in Blue Valley schools? And over and over and over and over and over again, students said, we want to choose the book that we're reading. We want time to read in class. I want to have a say. I want to find a book that's interesting. Even those students who feel that reading is boring and not for them, they do crave positive reading experiences. And we know that the best way to offer that is to allow them to choose. So our focus this morning is just that. How can we provide choice for students to discover what they like and dislike in books? Before we dive into this reflection, let's think back to your own personal reading identities and reading experiences. I'm going to break you out into some rooms in just a second, but I want you to think back to the first time you really loved to read. What book was it? Was it a chapter book, a picture book, a comic book, a graphic novel? What genre was it? What made you want to keep reading? And if at any point in your life, if you stopped reading, why? Why do you think this is? What kind of happened at that point? For me, the first book that I really loved to read was Little Women. We'll talk about why in just a second, but that was a chapter book for me, and it was about girls living their life. So let's break you guys out into some rooms to chat. Don't forget to introduce yourself to your breakout room participants and state your name and where you teach, but then discuss what book did you fall in love with first. Welcome back, everyone. I loved peeking into your conversations because I think it really is just true that all of us found a way to fall in love with reading at some point in our young lives, and how important that foundation at an early age was to developing our reading identities. And it's likely that you found a book that was one of three things. It was either a window, a mirror, or a sliding glass door. And we use these metaphors for books to describe how we view others and the world around us. So, a book that is a window allows us to peer into a life experience that is different than our own. So, we create empathy and better understanding of individuals or of historical context or of societies. But a mirror is a book that reflects our own experiences. We see ourselves in the characters, in the plot, in the setting, in the book that we're reading. Or a sliding glass door. A sliding glass door is a book that provides us the opportunity to see who we could be in the future because of those characters in those books. And I imagine that for many of us, that book we fell in love with first had a mirror or had a sliding glass door. When I think back to why I loved Little Women so much, it was because of Jo March, right? She always said the wrong thing, was always getting in trouble, but she loved to read and she loved to write and she loved to be outside. And that was me as a kid. And I also had a sliding glass door with her. She became a teacher, a writer, a mother. And that was an opportunity to see who I could be one day. That a kind of a squirrely, tomboy, geeky kid could become a leader one day. So when we think about our kids who are not reading, our non-readers, find a mirror first. find that opportunity for them to see themselves reflected in literature, because if they aren't reading, it's because they haven't seen themselves yet. This means as teachers, we need to be looking through every kind of window. You need to be diversifying what kinds of books you read so that no matter who walks into your classroom or who shows up on your roster, you have a book for that child. And so that means we need to be modeling our reading lives. We need to display what we read. We need to talk about what we read. We need to read books that our students will love. And last time we talked about some roadblocks we need to overcome. If you've said to yourself, I don't have time to read, or the books I read are not what my students will like, I have to remind you that if teachers are not knowledgeable about children's literature, they are not able to introduce students to the wealth of books available, and we may not recognize the effects our teaching methods have on students' attitudes toward reading. So with that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Christy Bolton. For those who don't know her, she is our district library coordinator, and she is going to introduce some specific librarians from 2 high schools and 1 middle school to share some books that you could start reading today. So if you're listening and you have like a piece of paper or some way to kind of track these titles, I recommend writing them down and picking them up in your library today to get started. All right, Christy, I'll let you take over.
All right, thanks, Abby. Thanks for having us here today. As you guys start this journey and continue to give kids choice in their reading, your school librarians are excited to partner with you as they have in the past and continue to do that going forward to find ways to find books that our kids love. And they, like you, read a lot and read a lot of these materials. And there are things that they've done with you and things that can continue to do to promote reading, such as book talks. We have book trailers, tons of activities to find good books with your classes and students, speed dating, blind dates with a book. One of the titles we're going to book talk here is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo, and Courtney Grimaldi from Blue Valley West is going to give us a quick little insight into this book.
Okay, hi, I am Courtney Grimaldi. Is my picture showing up on the side? Because I want to show. Okay, perfect. So this is the cover, and my books, I like to talk about the experience with the reading as well. And this book is all about the experience. And so the first part about this book I want to show you is the inside cover. So Elizabeth Acevedo is amazing about and really like delving into the experience. So on the inside of her cover, she just includes gorgeous artwork. So, and she does that with all of her books. And then each chapter she begins with the gorgeous artwork as well. And then she reads her own books. So if you listen to her audio books as well, I highly recommend listening to the audio of this book because she reads it and you really get a feel for her character, Imani, if you listen to it. And same with her other book, Clap When You Land and The Poet Acts. You just really delve into that character by listening to it. So that's the experience that you get with this book. The other experience that you get with this book is it's about food, and the way she talks about food in this book makes you very, very hungry. So you're going to want to have snacks available while you're reading this book because it's going to make you want to eat. So this book is about Imani. She is a senior, and when this book starts, she has a child, which she had when she was a freshman. And that story has kind of already happened. It's a no drama situation. She's raising her child on her own. She lives with her grandmother. And Imani loves to cook. She's a great mother. She is working a job. She's going to school, and she is doing everything she can to take care of her child in the best way that she knows possible and with the help of her community. And her senior year, her school has offered a class that is a cooking class. And so she struggles with the decision of whether or not she should take that cooking class because it will mean some sacrifices for her family. It will mean some shorter hours at the job that she's working. It'll mean that some people have to pick up her child from daycare, which she feels is a lot of extra work for people that are not her responsibility. And then at the end of the school year, it means that there's a trip to Spain for a real life cooking experience. And so she has to struggle with this idea of pursuing her dreams and making sacrifices, or kind of squashing her dreams and dealing with her real life of taking care of her child and taking care of her grandmother that she lives with, and figuring out which one to pursue and what she should do. So this book is the story of what Amani does her senior year and struggling with those decisions a teenager has to make who is a teen mom. So that is
Okay.
With the Fire on High.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney, for that. All right. Our other things we can do, we can book conference with students. If you are doing that in your class, we can come in and help with that. We can do book consultations and recommendations individually with students in the library. We have reading interest surveys we can conduct with students to help that, help them find materials. Our next book and our next book talk, is by Anne Harvey, our librarian at Oxford Middle School. She is going to book talk Black Brother by Jewel Parker Rhodes.
Yeah, so Black Brother came out this past spring. Jewel Parker Rhodes, she's written also another really well-known novel called Ghost Boys. She does a really good job taking events that have happened in the headlines, like in the real world, and like bringing them down to where kids can kind of grapple with them. So this story, Black Brother, is about two brothers, Dante and Trey. Their parents are of mixed race heritage, so their mother is Black and their father is white. And so the older brother, Trey, is perceived lighter skinned, and the younger brother, Dante, is darker skinned. And it's about these two boys they go to a a preparatory school, a boarding school, not on scholarship. Their parents are like at the same SES as everybody else, which is kind of a different change of pace for a lot of, I feel like, novels right now, which I appreciate because it meets some of our students' needs a little bit more. But so Dante, the younger brother who is darker skinned, this is told from his perspective. It's about how he feels he is treated very differently from his brother, who is lighter skinned, and he's bullied by the popular kids in school and teachers, and it's how he kind of has to grapple with how does he find his way and not lash out where he is going to bring more pain onto himself. He ends up, like, the big sport at his school is fencing, and so he wants to get back at the bully who's the best fencer by learning how to fence. So he goes to the inner city to seek out a fencing teacher. So that I push this book, yes, with covering like racism and implicit bias, but I also kind of push it as a sports book because the kids kind of latch onto that word. But this was definitely a book for me. It was my favorite one I read this year because it made me reflect on interactions I've had with my students in the past. Like, just made me think, like, did I have interactions where my implicit biases like were perceived differently or incorrectly? So it definitely made me think. And the books that the kids who've read this book have really enjoyed it as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anne. I have that one on my reading list as well. I can't wait when it becomes available. There are also features of things in our library catalog that kids can look at as they're looking through for books and reviews that are in the library catalog that would help them. There are websites that we can use and recommend, like Goodreads and What Should I Read Next, where you can go put in a title that you've read and it'll come up with all kinds of suggestions, very much like you might if you're even on Amazon. So lots of ways that we can help. Our last book talk from a school librarian is from Terry Sneathen at Blue Valley North. She's going to book talk I Was Their American Dream. I can't read the author's name on that, so sorry, I'm gonna let her talk about it. This is a graphic novel, if I remember correctly. So Terry, you're up.
Hi, everyone. I decided to talk about I Was Their American Dream, partly because it is a graphic memoir. Those of you who know me, I read really, really fast, and graphic novels just slow me down. So I kind of challenged myself this year to read more graphic novels, and this was one of the first ones that I picked up. This is by Malaka Gharib, and she is the daughter of an Egyptian Muslim father and a Filipino Catholic mother. The parents moved to the United States in the 80s to pursue their American dream. It didn't quite work out as they planned, but maybe it did for their daughter. And so this is her story. she grew up immersed in many different cultures. So she's in the Asian American community. Her parents got divorced, so she lives during the school year with her mother in California and spends the summers with her father in Egypt. And so she's immersed in all of these different cultures. She goes to a very diverse California high school. And then she goes to college in Syracuse, New York, which is an largely white school. So she's emerged in all of these things. And what kind of comes out of this is the defining question of her life is, what are you? And so this is kind of her exploring how our cultures influence what we become, and the direction that our life takes. And the illustration, she also does the illustrations because she's an artist as well as a journalist for NPR. And so the illustrations are done by her as well. It's got some really cute things in it. There's a microaggression bingo. There's some paper dolls with cutouts where you can kind of imagine putting the different clothes on the characters. Even some recipes kind of to go with the Fire on High. And the reason I chose this is that while we want students to read what they want to read, it's also good to kind of push them toward maybe some other formats or genres. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do in my personal life this year. So I thought that would be good to bring that to the front for our students.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. I'm going to go ahead and skip over. I have a few books that I've read the past couple of years, so I'll share these slides with everyone and you'll have access to these titles. But I had Christy pull data on what books are actually kids checking out when they do have choice in their libraries. And so I've compiled a couple of slides that you can refer to, and in the speaker notes of these slides will be the actual titles and authors. But in middle school, these are the most checked out books. These are what kids are most excited about reading for middle school. So a variety of genres, a variety of styles, different authors, some old, some new. Same for high school. These are the most popular books at the high school level right now. So when I send these out, feel free to look through these. These are great opportunities for you to pick up some of these books. But even though when students are choosing, you shouldn't feel like you have to read every book students are reading. But this is a good place to get started so you can start recommending books for your reluctant readers. Christy's going to speak a little bit about a few questions we have. So if students are reading at their own pace, that means students are finishing books at different times. So we want to have the ability to send individual students to the library to go get a new book whenever they can. How often should they be visiting the library as a class? And how does this all look within COVID protocols now that students are potentially going remote, and how that might look in order to get books in kids' hands when they're not physically at school. So Christy, do you have anything to say to that?
Sure. So obviously when we're in school, our libraries are open for kids to come in, and we have been open through the month of November and part of October as far as kids being able to come in and choose their own materials in small groups. Your classes have been able to come in socially distanced and check out materials if need be. As we head into distance learning, we will continue to be open. Your librarians can come into your virtual classes and virtual sessions, and again, work with students on how to access materials. We're going to be filling materials for them to pick up curbside. So we've got curbside delivery going on, which is a new thing for us this year, but we got a lot of that stuff ironed out early, hopefully, so that it works really smoothly this time. So we are available. However you need us to show up, and we will get books in the hands of kids. And we are excited to partner with you guys in this journey as we go forward. So.
Awesome. Yep. COVID ain't going to stop us from having kids read. So
no. And one other thing, we do have a great selection of ebooks that we have a consortium with Johnson County Library too, and your librarians can show you and your students how to access those ebooks as well for the kids who don't maybe want to come in and pick up physical materials.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. And thank you to Anne, Terry, and Courtney for speaking on some of those titles. So I want to leave you with some food for thought. When we talk about letting students choose, we mean it, right? Choice means choice. This means choice even for the kid who keeps abandoning books, even for the 10th grader that wants to read Captain Underpants, even for the kid who listens to audiobooks, even for the kid who reads the same thing over and over, even for the kid who reads graphic novels. They have to start forming that reading identity and that foundation, and that means they need to set that at their own terms. Evidence suggests that we use the same cognitive processes to make sense of comics or graphic novels as we do to read a sentence. So graphic novels and comics seem to tap into the deepest recesses of our minds where we can bring meaning to the world. So don't view graphic novels as an easy choice for kids. There is some research supporting the cognitive processes, and the rigor is there in those texts. And keep in mind that when a student has a poor reading experience, a poor experience, like being shamed for their reading choices, they can start to associate reading with painful feelings of insecurity, humiliation, and toxic stress. These negative experiences can start as early as kindergarten and impact a student's self-image throughout their entire educational career. So we have to take away that shame by really meaning choice and really acting on that. And when you have students, notice I say when you have students who refuse to pick a book, keep this in mind. Someone at some point in their life shamed them for their reading choices, and it's our job to undo that work. And if we can just get them to pick up a book and play with it and thumb through it, we can put some picture books in their hands. It's just like my daughter as she's learning to eat solids for the first time. If I can just get her to pick up the food, I know that we're moving in the right direction. If we can just get a kid to pick up a book and look through it, then you're making the right foundation. And our students are ready. A 7th grader in the survey said that I wish all teachers of reading would let me be myself. I want to be free from the shackles of emptiness, and when I find a book, it is to escape. An assigned book is a curse, where we're forced to travel to another world without our choice. We are forced to take away an hour of our lives we could spend being happy. I mean, if that doesn't sum up that our students are ready, I don't know what does. And when we forget our ability to choose, we learn to be helpless. Let's equip our students with the power to choose and to create their own reading journeys. Folks, in 2 weeks, we'll have part 3, where we start to actually talk about, okay, my students have books that they've chosen. What are we doing in class now? And so this is kind of the beginning of that foundation for us. So that's December 3rd. You can see we have through March a variety of topics, thought logs, which is the writing piece in class, designing units that are no longer tied to novels, book clubs, merging the classics with independent reading. So there is a time and place for a whole class novel. We'll talk about that in February, and then building our community of readers in March. If you are wanting more hands-on PL, if you want to kind of expedite this process and you don't want to wait till December 3rd or later dates to get this information, reach out to me. I can individually coach you and plan with you. I can work with your PLC or your department, send me an email, and I'd be happy to offer that service to you. At this point, that is about our time in the chat. I am going to share a link to the Google form where you can earn some professional points for joining us today. And thank you so much. Thank you, Christy. Thank you to all of our amazing librarians. I appreciate you supporting our English teachers in this journey. Have a great day, everyone.